Yes, sir.
Hi, Joe. I'm Ben, a grad student here at Creighton, and my question is concerning kind of Omaha and New York. You've lived and worked in both Omaha and New York. Can you talk about doing business and the difference between each city, and what would you do if you had to do it all over again? Would you live in a New York-style city, or would you live in Omaha?
Today I'd live in Omaha.
Right answer, Joe. Good answer.
But I think, frankly, for me, the way I ran our divisions at Merrill Lynch is exactly the same philosophy, attitude, and perspective that I brought to our firm at Ameritrade and today TD Ameritrade. I think there's one simple golden rule: you treat everybody the way you want to be treated yourself. And I've already talked about a lot of things. You want to communicate to your people. They need to understand where you're headed. All of those things. That was true in New York City. That's true in Omaha, Nebraska. That's true in some crappy little town in Mexico. That's the way I think you treat people, because that's what business is all about. As to where you live, I mean, we love Omaha, and this is our home, but I was incredibly comfortable in New York City, and that's my hometown. And they're two entirely different places to live. In some cases, you need to understand if you're more of a city person than a rural person, or a small town person than a big town person, but that's not it. We were happy in Omaha, we were happy in New York City. I think, go back to your own responsibility, you determine whether and how well you do in a particular fit. It's not the city, it's not the other way around. You determine the fit.
In the back.
Hi, Joe. My name's Doug Lederer.
Hi, Doug.
I'm actually an attorney here in town, but I also...
you won't hold that against you, Doug.
I just left a position where I was kind of put into a very ethically challenged position and left rather noisily. But I wondered if you could kind of discuss your, kind of the ethics. You hit on it a little bit earlier, but maybe go in and, what drives you at the core, and at what point do you shut off and say, no, I can't do that because it's the wrong thing to do?
Mm-hmm. I think at the end of the day, I remember you go back to spiritual soundness and looking in the mirror. There's another quality that I talk about. It's courage, and courage to me is the guts to do what you believe is right. At the end of the day, there are not if you have to have a whole lot of rules, probably you're never going to be that effective. And I think everybody in here, every great leader, every man, every woman, the truth is, you know the difference between right and wrong. You do what's right, you don't do what's wrong. When you have a tough decision to make, no matter how difficult that is, you've got to do what you believe is right. Mm-hmm. I don't know any other way to explain it. It can be incredibly complex as to what decision you come up with, but at the end of the day, that's how you make that. And I think as long as you do that, you're going to be okay. It may not be popular at the time, but it usually serves you well long term. Doesn't mean you may not make mistakes.
In the middle here.
Good evening, Joe. My name is Raj, and I'm a graduate student here. The question I have is...
Hold it. Do the graduate students get extra credit for coming here? Just one.
Not really. I'm an IT manager too. So okay. My question is the transition from... You might have a lot of challenges when you had the transition from Ameritrade to TD Ameritrade. What is one of the important factors that helped you to go through the challenges during the merger and acquisition?
Every decision we made, we say this publicly, but this is the truth. This is what we do internally as well. Is it good long-term for our business? They're good for our clients. Is it good for our shareholders? Mm-hmm. If it is, we got to work very hard to figure out how to get that done. Then you've got to know how to integrate. And the number one thing for us in the integration was, before we even did the deal, we knew why we were doing the deal, and we needed to lay out a plan that would allow us to reap the benefit of why we were doing the deal to begin with, number one. Number two, as I said, this is all about people. So our ability to be able to communicate with the people, people that weren't going to be part of it, people that were going to be part of it for a while but weren't going to be part of it later on, people that were going to be part of it long term, our ability to be able to communicate with those people and treat them very, very fairly, erring on the side of being generous, was everything that we really did, and they're the reasons why we were successful.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Hi, Joe. My name is Fam, a grad of Creighton. There's no credits. Thank you very much. I'm from China. And I know I have investment in foreign currency before, and the return is great, like 300%. But I know it's very stressful. And as mentioned before the conversation, we have to be physically healthy and spiritually healthy. So how do you, because it's very stressful, so how do you like to help yourself?
I think the number one thing that you really have to do, I do think you need to take mental breaks, but I think you need to exercise.
You has been a coach, so like the exercise can help you, but is there any other ways you also?
Well, I've been in the business world for 24 years. So all 24 years I wasn't a coach, and most of my jobs at Merrill Lynch I had global responsibility. So it wasn't uncommon for me to be out of the country 35, 40% of the time and to have 14 and 15-hour days. But I think it's important to get in 35, 45 minutes, an hour, 4 or 5 times, or 3 or 4 or 5 times a week for you to be able to kind of get your mind and your body to relax. I think that's very, very important. I already talked about some other things. You read something different from business. I think sometimes just being able to say a prayer helps. But we're not talking about sitting down praying for an hour. At least Father Schlegel's here. Maybe he does that. But that hasn't quite worked for me. But no, I'd go back to the exercise.
We have one more question. Yes?
Joe Ricky Dre, and I work for ConAgra Foods, and I'm also a graduate student here at Creighton. I have a question for you about, you make very passionate decisions. When you make those passionate decisions, how do you ensure that your leadership team is giving you full transparency and showing you the downside risk when you're absolutely sure you're doing the right thing?
One, I think it's the foundation you set from the beginning. And from the very, very beginning, we make it very, very clear that we have to have honest and open communication with each other. I will never hesitate to get feedback at a particular moment in time. And when we're doing things, remember, I put a lot of responsibility on our leaders' back, that the success of this firm is going to be very, very much up to you. I will give anybody that I work with the benefit of the doubt if I find out that you've genuinely, truly misled me on something that matters, that might hurt our organization. That will absolutely, that moment in time, cost you your job, period. And once in a while that does happen, and once in a while it's going to cost that person a job. I don't think there's ever a guarantee. I don't think you ever know. But you try to create an environment where that's the type of relationship that you have. It's a type of a standard and expectation that you have, that you give to your people as well as you expect that back from them.